Hey everyone, today I wanted to do a video talking to you about my M92 PAP AK Pistol from Century Arms. I've had this thing for over a year now, have shot it a lot, and I've had a lot of fun with it, and so I figured I'd take a chance to review it for you guys. Just to get some of the housekeeping out of the way, talking about the specs of it, obviously it's chambered in 7.62 by 39. It is a stamped receiver. It has a weight out of the box, so not as configured here, but out of the box. It has a weight of right around 5.5 pounds, right, like 5.7 pounds-ish. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit heavier the way I have it configured, which we'll go over here in a second. The overall length, not with a arm brace, is about 19 inches. And that's with the standard thread protector, not with this brake. And then the barrel length is 10 inches. Now when you order it, whether that be through an online dealer or your local gun store, it's probably just going to be regular black receiver with wood furniture and just a muzzle protector. Sometimes you might get a booster on the front, and I'll show you one of those here in a second, but it's probably just going to have a regular thread protector, and then it's going to come with 2 magazines. Now mine, it came with 2 of the Yugo steel mags with the last shot hold open. I'm not sure if that's standard or if that just happened to be what I got, but I thought that was pretty nice. And then it came with this pistol grip that you see here. Now the way I see this pistol being used is I think it really fulfills the role of truck gun to a T. It's something very small, very compact. You can very easily fit it just about anywhere in a vehicle if you had to. You'd also be able to put it in a small enough container that it would be inconspicuous as a firearm. However, if you are going to have a firearm in a vehicle, I would highly recommend that you secure it properly. There's a lot of videos out there and a lot of products out there that will assist you in figuring out how to appropriately do that for your vehicle. The other way I see this being used is just as a really fun range toy. Now while this can absolutely, don't get me wrong, this thing can absolutely be used for serious purposes, for personal protection, or as a go-to-war gun if you're looking for something like that. However, this thing is also just a blast to use at the range, and there are some limitations as far as using it in a real-life self-defense scenario. So let me go ahead and talk about the features of this rifle, specifically the stuff on here that it comes with, and then we'll go a little bit deeper into some of the modifications that I have made. So firstly, you can see here, it has just kind of a regular pistol grip. It's not your standard peg grip that you get on a lot of your Eastern European AKs, which I don't like. I don't think those things fill your hand up enough, at least for me. So this one is actually not that bad. On a lot of my other AKs that have that standard Eastern Bloc peg grip, I usually swap it out for something else. I've really become a fan of the Hogue AK grips, but this is serviceable. It works well enough. It fits my hand well enough, and it's comfortable enough for me, so I don't necessarily feel a need to swap this out anytime soon. If I do, it'll probably be for either a mag pull or for a Hogue grip, like I said. But again, this thing is more than serviceable. I think it fulfills the role nicely. The trigger in it is a Tapco G2 trigger, which for a long time was pretty much the standard as far as AK triggers go. It's a really nice trigger. It's pretty light. It's pretty crisp, again, as far as AK triggers go, and it doesn't really have a problem with trigger slap at all. They have usually been pretty reliable. I know there have been some issues surfacing as of late, and I know that on the American-made AKs, Century is going with their own proprietary trigger as opposed to the G2, but I think the G2 is still a good option out there. As you can see here with the safety, this is the standard safety that it comes with. It does have the little cutout if you do want to lock the bolt to the rear, which is nice if you have to go to a range where that is a requirement, and it's really hard to do that behind the camera here. But let me see if I can. Yeah, so you can lock the bolt to the rear if you have to, but unless you're going to a range where that's a requirement, there's not a whole lot of need to do that. As far as the sights, you can see that it has the rear sight attached to the dust cover right here, which is a hinged dust cover, so you don't have to worry too much about wandering zero since it is pretty much affixed in the front. And then the front sight, you have a standard post like you see on most AKs, which is windage and elevation adjustable, and then you also have what's normally a high-vis thing as well, which normally has a dot, but I'm not sure if that's been blacked out from carbon or if it's just worn off, but that's there for you as well. And then again, to mention on this rear sight, you have what they deem a 200-yard aperture and a 400-yard aperture. I know there are people who can do it, but I think 400 yards is a little bit ambitious for a aperture on a pistol like this. You know, really the 200 yard aperture is going to be, you know, good enough for realistic engagement distances. But as you can see, I have a red dot which kind of nullifies both of those. And then other than the receiver, that's pretty much it as far as what it normally comes with out of a box. Again, you're going to get standard wood furniture on both the lower and upper part here where the gas tube is. And then mine came with the standard barrel nut or just a thread protector. You can get them occasionally with the booster. Now, if it comes with a barrel nut, one of the things you're going to have to add is this little detent kit right here. It's very easy to install. It's not very expensive, and I'll even put a link to where you can find one of those online. But it's a really simple install, and it will allow you to actually lock muzzle devices in place, which is a good thing. Now, as far as the stuff that I've added to it, we'll go ahead and start from the rear and work our way forward. This is one of the I think it's SB47 arm braces. It attaches in between the receiver and the pistol grip. It's not the most solid lockup in the world. It kind of drifts left to right. The brace itself can rotate around. I know with glue you can fix that, but it's definitely not the most secure method in the world. But you know, it is better than nothing. And even shooting this from the cheek is a lot better than shooting it freehand. Now, I will say before the ATF handed down their most recent opinion letter saying that it is a remanufacturing of the pistol to shoulder it, when I did shoulder it before, it was great. It worked flawlessly and it was very effective. However, since they handed down that ruling, you know, I've just shot this from the cheek, and with this muzzle brake, that makes it a very easy thing to do. Then moving on forward, in the receiver itself, and I'll show you this a little bit later when I take this thing open, I actually went through and polished all the rails and the bolt itself to make it run a lot smoother. Not that it was super chunky before, but it definitely needed some smoothing out. I also did a lot of work on the safety itself. When it comes, this thing is very, very stiff and does not want to go into or out of safe very easily. So I went ahead and groove down the inside of the detents a little bit, as well as the little post itself on the safety to smooth that out a little bit. Now, Krebs does offer a little finger ledge like their regular safeties that you can add to your Yugo one that it comes with, or what you can do is they now have a Yugo specific safety. I want to say it runs about 80 bucks. But just to let you know, if you just buy the regular Krebs safety selectors, unless it specifically says it's for a Yugo AK, it will not fit into this slot and actually line up with your detents at all. I know there are people who have basically created new detents for it to fit into, but just letting you know that straight out of the box, it will not work appropriately for this AK. So moving forward from there, I have a Midwest Industries rail on here. I got this one really before they offered the M-Lock or the Key Mod rail systems. So this is just the regular 1913 style rail systems. I have an AFG2 down here. I have some, I think it's Ergo rail covers here. And then this is a Bushnell TRS 25 red dot. It's been on it for a long time and it's handled it extremely well. I've had no issues with it shutting off due to recoil or anything crazy like that. So it has been more than serviceable. Eventually I plan on swapping that out in the future, but I'll talk about that later as well. And then lastly, like I said, I took off the regular barrel nut and then added this Manticore night brake. This is a very, very, very effective brake, and I'll probably do a review on it in the future. But I will say it's not comfortable to be around when this thing is shooting, which is one of the reasons I say this is a nice range toy. If you're working in teams or anything like that, or you're shooting indoors, this is not going to be pleasant whatsoever. But again, as far as a muzzle brake, this thing does its job exceptionally well, and it's also priced very reasonably in my opinion. So that's pretty much all of the external stuff I've changed. It's not a whole lot. Now for me, out of the box, this cost about $450, and I would say with all the modifications I've made to it, it's probably somewhere closer to the $700, $750 range, but to me it is still a very, very good deal, and it is more than serviceable shooting it as it comes straight out of the box. I do think adding a brace helps, but again, out of the box there's really no issues. As far as shootability, it's just, for me, I like red dots and modernizing a little bit better. Now, Mikhail Kalashnikov was a genius when it comes to developing firearms, but we've come a long way in 70 years, and I don't think he'd be rolling over in his grave too much to see us modernizing these rifles. If you have an issue with it, take it up with the Russians themselves, considering a lot of their tier 1 guys are modernizing the heck out of their AK-74s. Alright, so at this point I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the accuracy of it. Shortly after I got this, and before I started working as a firearms instructor at Defensive Firearms Instruction, I actually took this AK pistol through the carbine course, and I remember when we were getting our zeros, the other instructors were pretty impressed by the groups that were coming out of this, and I can say I was pretty impressed by it as well. So this target here specifically, I shot the other day, it was at 25 yards, just because I think that's a realistic distance for this with a 10-inch barrel. So you can extrapolate some of these groups to what it would be like at 50, 75, 100 yards. But this is all, again, at 25 yards with steel-cased Tula full metal jacket, so by no means is it match-grade ammo or anything like that. You know, I have some wider groups, you know, 2 inches, 3 inches here and there, but consistently it was right around 1 inch or less, you know, especially down here or up here, less than 1 inch at 25 yards. So, you know, it could be, if with a competent shooter, right around 3 to 4 inches at 100 yards, which really isn't bad for a 10-inch barrel AK. A lot of AK shooters are used to minute-a-man accuracy, so to get accuracy like that out of this, I think, is exceptional. And this is all with the Manticore Nightbrake as well, in case you're wondering how that affects anything, or if it affects anything at all. So again, some were opened up, but I guarantee that's all me, whereas the others, it actually tightened up pretty effectively. So as far as the accuracy goes, I was pleasantly surprised myself. So take these groups how you will. Again, 25 yards with Tula steel-cased full metal jacket, and I was also shooting this. I had a rest on the front, and I had a shooting sock underneath the brace, shooting this from the cheek. I don't know if I was able to shoulder it with a regular stock, if that would improve accuracy a little bit, or if I put maybe the ALG AKT trigger in it, if that would help anything. But with the groups that I got, I'm more than satisfied. So let me go ahead and open this thing up and show you what it looks like on the inside, show you a little bit of what I've done as far as the internals go. So, well, something here to protect my tablecloth, or bed sheet really. So, as you can see, it's just got your standard recoil spring, which is hinged. Try to get that around. And again, it is possible to remove the dust cover, but it is pinned in there, so I don't see any reason to. And then take that safety off. Do it like that. So if you can see inside there, all of that, the rails came with a black finish on it, and it actually held up really well, even under firing. You know, just a little bit of bright spots here and there. But I went ahead and went through there, and Jim Fuller has a really great video on YouTube talking about how to smooth out your AK that I believe he did with James Yeager. Considering Jim Fuller has done a video on it, I don't feel the need to, because I don't think there's anything about AKs that can be said any better than how Jim Fuller would say it. So I'll just go ahead and put a link to that video in the description below, and I'll put an annotation to it. Check it out. If you have an AK that has trouble with, you know, getting caught up or not being very smooth, it really doesn't take that long. All you need is some sandpaper and some steel wool and a little bit of time, and it will really smooth things out. As you can see, as far as the internals go, nothing crazy, no crazy mushrooming or anything crazy like that. Let me go ahead and take that out. As far as the shepherd's hook in this, I think this is one of the best shepherd's hooks as far as a factory rifle, but still, I'm not a huge fan of shepherd's hooks, and probably in the future when I think of it, I'll probably take this one out. The thing is, it doesn't secure to the safety itself, so you can take the safety in and out without really having to worry about it. So that's one reason I haven't worried about changing it out just yet. So again, it's very nice on the inside. Nothing too crazy, nothing glaring at me. as far as any issues. And then moving on to the bolt and bolt carrier itself. Again, I did some polishing on here. It was pretty rough as far as tool marks on the piston, so kind of smoothed that out a little bit, made things a lot smoother, smoothed things out on the inside. But if you can look in there, it's still a little bit dirty from shooting, but no crazy mushrooming there. There is a little bit of mushrooming on the end of the receiver, or excuse me, the end of the bolt carrier. It's not totally uncommon for that to happen on AKs, and this thing, just for reference, is probably sitting around the 12 to 1500 round count area, so not unheard of from an AK. Definitely not the worst mushrooming I've ever seen, but just letting you know that does exist. You know, your standard bolt and bolt carrier for this little AK pistol, and then again on the bolt itself, no real signs of mushrooming, no obnoxious wear, anything crazy like that. Still works fine. Now, just for reference, I do use white lithium grease to lube my AKs, and it works great. I've really had no reliability issues with this rifle whatsoever. Whether I clean it or not, it just keeps chugging away. The only issues I've ever had have all been ammo related, with specifically Tula ammo, where I'll get a really good strike on the primer and it just won't go off for whatever reason, and even those are still few and far between. So again, and that's also ammo that has that issue across different platform or different AKs, so it's not like it's just from this AK. It also does it in my Arsenal and my other Century. So again, you know, your standard stuff, nothing crazy. Again, no crazy mushrooming other than the back of that receiver, which at this round count, it's not unheard of to have mushrooming like that. But again, I will also say that there was a vast improvement as soon as I did that Jim Fuller smoothing out and sanding on the inside. Definitely made life a lot nicer as far as operating this AK-47. Now here you can see a older generation Magpul AKP mag, locks in just fine. Now as far as my AKs, bad example, but it locks in just fine. Not really any wobble to speak of. A lot of the polymer mags that I've used with this will typically have a little bit of a tighter fit so this is a Tapco mag, but again, locks in just fine. No real wobble whatsoever there. See, next one, I have one of the new steel reinforced AKP mags. This one is a little bit tight as well. Really no wobble whatsoever. And again, all of these mags that I'm showing you have all been run through this and have functioned flawlessly. This is one of the Bulgarian Circle 10s with a last shot hold open follower, both of which work just fine. Holds open on the last shot with no issues. Let's see, and then I just have a regular steel surplus mag, locks in just fine. This has the most wobble of them all, but you know, really not that much of an issue. Haven't seen any reliability issues with that. And then just for reference as well, I don't know if you heard it fall off the table earlier, might have edited that sound out, but even with the 75 round drums, you know, locks in just fine, functions just fine. You know, really no issues to speak of whatsoever as far as magazine lockup goes. So hopefully, you know, it's a pretty good cross section of the AK mags available out there today. So hopefully that will dissolve any fear that you might have about the lockup of your particular magazine. Now, to kind of go back to the whole ATF deal with this arm brace definitely makes life a lot nicer when it comes to shooting this pistol. Again, like I said, I got this before they handed down the opinion letter saying that it is a remanufacture of the pistol into an SBR if you shoulder it. So I haven't really shouldered it since then, which sucks. But even shooting it from the cheek is not bad, because this muzzle brake does such a good job combating the recoil and the muzzle rise that no matter how you shoot it, it's going to pretty much bring it right back on target anyway. With a booster, I can't say the same thing. Booster definitely takes it off target quite a bit. So you know, it's all about how you're bracing the recoil. Now, where I really see this thing shining is if you were to submit your tax stamp to SBR it and either swap out the rear trunnion for a actual side folding trunnion, or just get one of the adapters from like Ace that will allow you to have like a side folder. You know, this thing is such a small package that it would really suck to permanently make it a lot longer. Now, when it comes to arm braces, you can even get side folding arm braces, which is a really nice thing, which I should also mention, now that I'm thinking of it, there is no optic rail on the left side, so there's nothing to block you from folding off to the left. Or if you do want an optic rail, that's something you're going to have to add yourself. It will not come from the factory like that. But hopefully the ATF will soon get their head out of their rears and tell people that it is not remanufacturing the pistol based on how you fire it. And at which point, you know, I'll probably use this a lot more. I will say, after they handed down that opinion, this thing really kind of took a backseat to all my other AKs, my full-size AKs, just because it wasn't really as easy to shoot or as fun to shoot with this not being shouldered. The law is the way it is currently, you know, whether you like it or not. I don't want to face any federal charges, so until such time as they do figure out what's going on, I'm not going to be shouldering it. Now, I've had it the way this, I've had it configured this way for quite a while now, and I really like this setup. I think this setup works really well for how I use it, which is, again, mostly more or less as a range toy. For anything serious, I'll use my full-size AKs. But once I do plan on getting this SBR'd, so anticipate that in the future when I do that, which, you know, will probably take 5-6 months, judging by the way things are going right now. I'll probably do an update and talk about it then. But I think this will really, really shine once it's an SBR. I also plan on swapping out the Midwest Industries rail in lieu, or for a definitely an Ultimac gas tube up here. I'm a really big fan of those Ultimac gas tubes because currently the way this optic is set up, I do not have the ability to co-witness. It is just below the field of view, which I'm not a huge fan of. I like having co-witness if I can have it. So I want to switch to an Ultimac rail up here, and then I'll probably find another lower hand guard, probably keep the AFG2 though. So those are some changes I'll do in the future. Again, once I get it SBR'd, I'll probably do an update on this thing and let you know how things are going with it. But overall, I am extremely satisfied with this thing. This thing has really been a great purchase. I haven't regretted it once since I bought it. If you're looking for a small, compact, effective pistol or firearm to have in your vehicle, this is a really great option. This, or maybe even the M85, which is the same thing, but it takes 5.56 rounds. You can even get it so it takes regular AR mags, which is pretty cool. But I mean, this thing has been 100% reliable for me, with the exception of ammo. And then it's just been so much fun to shoot. So if you're on the fence about one of these, I would recommend just go ahead, bite the bullet, and get one. They're so popular right now that if you buy it and you don't like it, I'm sure you'd be able to sell it without any problem. Pretty much anytime I put this in someone's hands, the first thing they say after handing it back, if they want to hand it back, is that they are going to have to buy one themselves. So it's just a solid bet all the way around. I really think you're going to like it if you get one, and so I would definitely encourage you, again, if you're on the fence, go ahead and just pick one up, have some fun, and enjoy it. So I hope you were able to get something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching.